All right, guys. So we're back at it with the 318is. Now, one of my favorite things to do when I get a new car is to do the full walkthrough to see what I have in front of me so I know what to expect. Now, right away, I noticed that it does not have the windshield washer reservoir. So that's nothing too bad there. In addition, though, I noticed looking at it, it does not have the AC pulley. Here, that's the tensioner. This is the pulley for the AC, which would normally be connected to the crank, but that's not the case here. Now, it's great to look at seals to see if there's any leaking, any wear and so forth. Just looking around the valve head, I'm not seeing any issues there. The airbox could tell a lot of tales. You know, if you see one that's been extremely dirty, it tells one thing, and if you have one that's clean, you know, at a minimum you have one that's clean. So looking at this one, it's as if it's been compressed, you know. Maybe it's not positioned in there right, but that's going to be something where I'm going to want to replace it. Now, one of the biggest things to look for are any unusual leaks. On this platform, I've read that the oil filter housing gasket can go and it could have a pretty big leak. I haven't noticed anything severe here. There was a small leak, but it turned out that it was the oil drain plug that needed to be torqued down properly. It was pretty loose, frankly, and there was some droplets there. The cooling system. I want to know where the coolant is. How does the reservoir look? Are there any cracks? On this reservoir, there hasn't been any. The coolant is filled up. It's not discolored or anything like that. I noticed that there's a little bit of a discoloration around the cap itself. So I want to know if this car has been overheated. Looking at the top of the hood, you want to look if there's any discoloration there, because if the reservoir exploded or something like that, you'll see what look like watermarks or discoloration on the top of it. But looking at this reservoir, it frankly looks new. I do know that the radiator itself is new, as I confirmed that. Just as important are looking at the hoses. Are there any cracks in it? Are there any tears? This is not anything I'm seeing here. These aren't new hoses, but they look good. Same thing with the belts. These belts, they look good. There are no cracks in them. They're not excessively loose or anything like that. Now, looking at the actual wires, how you get electricity is big too. Is there any damage to the wires? As you can see here on the black one, it looks like there's some stripping, not to the point where it gets to the electronics itself, but there's damage to it, right? So it's going to be something where if I notice anything unusual, I'm looking out for it. Speaking of which, this hose would normally go to the washer reservoir. It's been cut because there's no need for it. There's not going to be anything for it to take of it. Now, looking at the bottom of the hood again, no major discoloration or any burn marks, water marks, or anything like that. So it suggests that this car has not overheated. I was fortunate that this has the glass headlights, so discoloration is not going to be an issue. You know, they're relatively rare. Side markers, big issue here. I just can't seem to get these things to stay in. The E36 has that issue. In fact, it's the same thing with E46. They had these side markers that are separated as opposed to being one housing unit. You're just happy to have them in if you can. And what happened on the E36 is on a trip to Thunder Hill, it just flew out. I'm glad it didn't break, but it's gonna stay in there, whether it's double-sided tape or whatever I have to do, I'll get it in there. Now, you want to check for the tires, right? On this car, the tires have a plenty of life. Along those same lines, you want to check out the suspension. In this instance, it has Raceline coilovers. I've been really impressed by these. The car rides well, it has good grip, and it allows the car to do what it does. Brakes. You want to check out the brakes, look at the rotors as well as the pads. These have presumably performance rotors. They do stop pretty good, but it's a lightweight car, so I'm not expecting stopping to ever be an issue. The best way to check for rotors is to feel if there's a lip on them. Just get your finger on them, feel if there's a lip. These ones are smooth. A lip suggests that it's been worn down, possibly even warped. Brake pads are looking good. So moving to the paint itself, just to give you a preview, you can see it's pretty beat up and the clear is pretty much gone. Now in the trunk, this was a nice little surprise. It has a dine-in cold air intake. It's the official one. You can just tell by the lettering, and the quality of it feels really good. So you could see that it's something that I might use later. It has its own plug for the MAF and so forth. But the filter itself, not so good. It looks like there's a K&N one before. This I'll have to figure out what it is, but I'll get back to that. This is the one that came with the dine-in, the filter. It looks nice, you know, but in terms of it actually filtering, I can't imagine it looking worse. I mean, there's literally dirt on the inside, and that's going to go right into the engine. It's just going to cause premature wear. Nobody needs that. Now, an amazing part for cars of this vintage is the toolkit. I haven't opened this yet, and at this point, you know, I'm pretty excited to see what's there. If it does have a full toolkit, that's always a plus. So what are we gonna have? Boom. We've got the full toolkit. Every single thing, you know, the tow hook, the wrenches, just everything, all the little knickknacks, even a screwdriver to get you on your way. These things, like if you go to the pick and pull, that type of thing, it's the first thing to go. So it's always nice when you see it there. It says if this one has never really been open. It doesn't have anything on it. Also have 2 extra side markers. So I guess if I had lost that one in Thunder Hill, I'd have replacements, but I still got to figure it out. Now this right here is for the interior panel. I was pretty surprised that it was still there because I've noticed that there was a piece missing. I'll show you exactly where it was from. So all the electronics work, right? All the windows work, including the sunroof. This goes right here. And like I said, the sunroof works. So the way that it is kind of tucked in here. But I mean, the buttons themselves work. That panel is a little damp. I don't know if maybe the sunroof was left open, but maybe I'll dry it out, clean it up, and get it back on there. But it's gonna have to just stay on the ground for now. Along with missing pieces, steering wheel looks great, but here, the door handle is missing the trim here. Hopefully I could find that at a pick and pull. Here, chassis mounted shifter. This is something I've talked about in a previous video. I'm pretty excited for. The control unit, this is essentially the onboard computer. It works, but you could barely see it. You know, you have to look at it at the right angle, in the right light, and you can see it there. It has temperature, miles per gallon, so forth. Fortunately, this has a Bluetooth aftermarket speaker, and I've got the phone holder there. It allows it to charge. Again, cars of this vintage, it has the coin holder. Got to tell you, there was a time where showing up at the McDonald's drive-thru with perfect change, you were a superhero. It has the heated seats. The thing is, though, this car in particular doesn't have the right seats for it. It has sedan seats. So getting to the back, you would expect a lever right here so that it goes forward and allow, you know, back passengers to get in there. But it doesn't have it. You know, the seats are fully manual, which is nice. And it allows, you know, multiple means of adjustment, and they're lightweight. So I do like that, but I've got to get the right seats in there so I can do what I need to do. Notice it has the ASC, right? That's active stability control. And this is a big thing. Based on my research, if it had active stability control, it would mean that the car doesn't have a LSD. But check this out. When under the car checking for bushings to make sure there's not any leaking or anything, it's a perfect time to look at your diff. So the best way to look at this is look for the part number. On this one, mine was 1212665. You want to look at the casing to find out your ratio. It's right below, and this one was a 345. Looking here, this is a good example. Right at the top, you see where I'm talking about, where it says the 1212665. That's the part number of the diff itself. Below that, you see the BMW symbol, and then a little bit to the left, you'll notice a tag right there, it has a 345 ratio, right? That lets you know where your diff is. On this platform, it went as high as a 4.44. Now, what you're looking for to know if you have the LSD is if it has an S in front of that differential ratio. On this car that I have, it has an S in front of it. That indicates a limited slip differential. No number, that means no LSD. Now, theoretically, someone could have put in an LSD and without changing the casing and the numbers and so forth. So, I mean, you do a burnout, then you'll know. If you have one tire fire, no LSD. If you lay down 11s, you've got an LSD. Now, getting back to the walkthrough, you notice here it has new struts. It has the Raceland coilovers, as I discussed before. Like I said, really good suspension. I didn't know much about it before, but I've been impressed. Now, looking at the actual LSD, now that you have the context, you see here the 1212665 that lets me know the part number. The ratio is below it. Looking down the car, you can see the exhaust is hanging on by some metal twine, essentially. But in terms of the exhaust system, it's a stock exhaust. It has an O2 sensor, it has a cat, nothing special there, nothing remarkable. In terms of the bushings, they look to be in good shape. What you're looking for there is any leaking, anything unusual, any cracked bushings, and so forth. So going back up top, I think the big thing on this car is this paint. For me, I mean, cosmetics, they don't matter all that much, but this stands out here. So in terms of this paint job, there's so much clear coat damage. You could see it along here, the roof. There is no clear coat on the roof, but it doesn't seem like the base coat is damaged too much. You can see it all along the top, is toward the front of the car. You can see it on the mirrors. You can see the clear coat just chipping off there. So these are things that are solvable according to YouTube and what I've seen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a shot. I have different types of sandpaper here. I have 1200, 1000, and 600. I think the 600 might be too aggressive, but they didn't have 800. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet sand it, and see how it goes. But until next time, thanks for taking a look. Take care, guys.